All right, chapter 3, we're going to be spending a lot of time working with parallel lines and also some perpendicular lines. And in getting there, we're going to look at section 3.1, which is going to be looking at a transversal, which is going to create a few different angle relationships that are available once you have lines that are cut by a transversal. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Talking about parallel lines, we should understand that parallel lines are two lines that will never intersect. They are coplanar. They're going to be on the same plane. These two lines here, the notation that gets used, since line M is parallel to line Q, I'm going to use two lines next to each other, and that's our parallel notation. So line M is parallel to line Q. Now, parallel lines are two lines that will never cross and never intersect. We can also have parallel planes, and you can have two flat surfaces that will never intersect. For example, the floor that you are standing on and the ceiling that is above you, those two planes will most likely never intersect. So they are parallel to each other. And as we start to look at parallel lines and different lines in general, we start to look at here what's called the transversal. And a transversal line is a line that intersects two or more lines in a plane at different points. So what I have here is I have these two lines that you can see, and I'll say that this is line M and this is line P. And this line that's coming through here in the middle, we'll call that line Q. That is acting as a transversal line. It is intersecting these two lines at two different points. And all three of these are on the same plane. They're all on the same piece of paper. In the next one here, you might look at this and say, oh, it doesn't look like there's a transverse at all. But remember that lines extend in both ways infinitely. They keep going forever and ever. So if I just extend these two lines, now if I look at naming these lines, so we'll go that this line here is line N, and we'll say that here we'll work with line T, and we'll look at A. With N and T, if I see that those two lines, notice that line A is crossing over at 2 points. So line A is a transversal line to line N and to line T. If I were to look at two different lines, if I wanted to look at T and I wanted to look at A, if I look at those two lines, now these two lines intersect, but you also notice that there's a transversal going on between those, and our transversal line here would then be line N, and it's intersecting at two different points. So line N, T, and A, they're all going to be transversals in some sort of way if you do not have any lines that are parallel to each other. If I go back and I look at these two lines of M and P, and if these two lines are parallel, well, M and P will never intersect. Therefore, line Q will only be the transversal line. So now we're going to get into some different angle relationships that occur when we have two lines and a transversal. And the first one's going to start out with corresponding angles. Corresponding angles, what I am referring to here is I'm looking at the angles that I like to think of it as they're the angles that are in the same corner. So if I start at angle 1, notice that here this transversal is creating 8 angles. And angle 1 is in the, I like to think of it as the upper left-hand corner. Well, then if I look at where so we've got 4 angles here and then 4 angles down here. If I look at the other 4 angles, I look at the top left and I have angle 5. Angle 1 and angle 5, those two angles right there are what we call corresponding angles. If I look at angle 2 is in the top right. Well, angle 6 is in the top right as well. So they would be corresponding. Angle 4 is in the bottom right. Angle 7 is in the bottom right. They are corresponding. And then angle 3 and angle 8 are corresponding. So I'm just going to go ahead and write down my corresponding angles. So angle 1 and angle 5, angle 2 and angle 6, angle 3 and angle 8, and angle 4 and angle 7. Those are my corresponding angles. Now, with those corresponding angles, we have what are called interior and exterior angles. Interior angles, what I'm referring to here are the angles that are inside the two lines that are cut by the transversal. A little bit easier if I visually show you here is that we're looking at the inside angles being angles 3, 4, 5, and 6. Those are inside the two lines that are cut by the transversal. Our exterior angles are going to be the ones on the outside, which is going to be angles 1, 2, 8, and 7. So interior angles, angle 3, angle 4, angle 5, and angle 6. Exterior, angle 1, angle 2, angle 8, and angle 7. Knowing what an interior and exterior angle is really important because that's going to end up getting us to our next few terms when we start looking at consecutive interior, alternate exterior, consecutive exterior. So we'll get into that. Alternate interior angles. You'll see that it has the word interior. So interior means we're looking at angles 3, 4, 5, or 6. And then it has the word alternate on here. And the word alternate is telling us that we want the opposite sides. So we're going to take the two angles that are opposite, the two interior angles that are on the opposite side of the transversal, meaning angle 4 and angle 5. Angle 3 and angle 6 are also alternate interior angles because they are on opposite sides of the transversal line. So angle 4 and angle 5 are alternate interior angles, and angle 3 and angle 6 are also alternate interior angles. So when we have alternate interior angles, we have alternate exterior angles. So exterior angles, once again, we're going to start looking at angles 1, 2, 8, and 7. And opposite sides of the transversal, I'm going to refer to angle 1 and angle 7. Angle 2 and angle 8 are alternate exterior angles. I'm taking the exterior angles 1, 2, 8, and 7, and then we're just looking at the opposite side of the transversal. Then we're going to be looking at consecutive interior angles. So again, we're using the word interior, so we're talking about angles 3, 4, 5, or 6. And this time we're talking about consecutive. And consecutive interior angles, what we're referring to here is the angles that are on the same side of the transversal. So angle 4 and angle 6, angle 3 and angle 5. Those are our consecutive interior angles. When we have consecutive interior angles, you might guess that we're going to have consecutive exterior angles as well. So consecutive exterior angles are exterior angles that are on the same side of the transversal. So I'm talking about angles 2 and 7 and angles 1 and 8. So we are almost through all of our different relationships that we have. I just want to go over a couple other ones here real quick. And vertical angles is something that we've already talked about, but it's going to come up once again. So remember that vertical angles are angles that are formed when two lines intersect and they're opposite of each other. So we're talking about angles 1 and 4 are vertical angles, 3 and 2 are vertical angles. We've got angles 5 and 7 are vertical angles, and 6 and 8 are vertical angles. Also remember, vertical angles are always congruent to each other as well. So angles 2 and 3, they're vertical angles, but we can also say that angle 2 is going to be congruent to angle 3. We can say that angle 1, we know that that has to be congruent to angle 4. Angle 5 is going to be congruent to angle 7, and angle 6 has to be congruent to angle 8. So we have our pairs of angles, and they're going to be congruent to each other. Another relationship that I want to bring up once again is just supplementary angles. And remember, to be supplementary, you have two angles that add up to 180 degrees. Because we're working with straight lines, angles 1 and 2, they're supplementary to each other. Angles 2 and 4 are supplementary. 3 and 4 are supplementary. And this is going to get a little messy here with all the colors, but then I also have 1 and 3, which it kind of gets blocked out there. 1 and 3 are also supplementary angles. So you're looking at all these angles that are creating 180 degrees. And I can do that all around here too. So 5 and 6, we can do 6 and 7, and we can do 8 and 7, and also 5 and 8. Those are all of our options to be supplementary. These terms that I just went over here are some terms that you want to be working with and reviewing, and we're going to be making some flashcards in class to help you review these because you want to have them known. It's going to make things a lot easier down the road. If you have any questions on anything, make sure that you let me know.